ozComic-Con Christmas is a 2-day event held in Melbourne, Australia at the end of each year. It is invite only, with invites being sent to all artists who table at an ozComic-Con event that year. Now, this year was actually only its third time running, and previous reviews of it from other artists were a bit of a mixed bag. The consensus seemed to be that its first year was really not that great, but that last year's show was actually quite decent. All this to say, I didn't really know what to expect going in, but luckily I am based in Melbourne, so unlike some of my friends who were flying in from other states, I didn't have any travel expenses to worry about. On Friday, I hustled my way to the convention center after panic packing my suitcase right before I left the house. I got there around 4 in the afternoon to find that both my table neighbors had already finished setting up. Despite my late arrival, the actual setup process was relatively painless since I haven't really changed my setup in a while. I did manage to get most of my table set up on the Friday. The most important thing was my giant print display stand, which is always a bit of a hassle to build. I did forget a few things such as my mini standees and essentially all of my signage, but since it was a local event, I decided I'd just clean it up the next morning and headed home. That same night, I panicked and frantically started making sticker sheets. You see, I usually try to release a new batch of merch for each convention, and this time I had new arcane charms, among some other things. Problem was, I'd only ordered 50 to 30 of each charm in this batch, and after taking into account pre-orders, Black Friday sales, and Cyber Monday sales, I only had single digits of some characters left to sell. For some reason, I thought that this was the end of the world and that I was going to make 0 sales because of it, which was entirely unfounded because I have so many other products. But because of that, I ended up speedrunning 2 sticker sheets before I went to sleep. This ended up being not the genius business decision that I thought it was, because it meant that I only went to sleep at 4 AM, and for reference, I had to wake up at 6 AM the next day, but hey, hindsight is always 20/20. To say I was tired the next day is a pretty big understatement, but with no other choice, I pulled up to the convention center bright and early at 7 AM to finish setting up. Looking back, I really didn't need to be there that early because the first hour was incredibly quiet, and honestly, sales only started picking up at around 10, which, to be fair, is a far more reasonable time to be awake and in the city. Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi.
Can I please get a Jinx gummy charm?
Yeah. Thank you so much. You too. Sorry.
Can I get your Echo key charm?
Yeah.
Shark keychain? Magic charm.
I love him so much.
I know, they're so cute.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Can I please get the soho, soho and Ivan strip charms? These are wings, you know? The ones with the wings are insane. That's the thing.
Thank you.
There a business card in there?
Yeah, at the back.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you. The traffic was pretty good from around 10 AM to 1 PM. Nothing particularly insane, of course, but still decent. This dropped off at around 2 PM, and I ended up spending the rest of the day messing around with my helper between sales. On Sunday, after having slept more than 2 hours this time, I enjoyed a nice, somewhat leisurely walk to the convention center. One of the more interesting exhibits at the convention was the Sheen stage. Nobody could quite tell how or why this was there, and everyone that I spoke to was equally baffled by it. I'm out of a few of my charms. Victor and Peck are gone. I'm low on Jinx. I think I have one left. Someone left the bunny thing on my table. Is that on cot? Yeah. Cot or cash? Would you prefer? Cot? Thank you so much. Though I was making less sales overall in comparison to Saturday, my Sunday sales were actually relatively consistent from hour to hour. In the downtime, I ended up sketching Victor and of course, pulling for Sunday in style rail. I don't have footage of this, so you just have to take my word for it, but I managed to win my 50-50 and get Sunday in under 30 pulls. However, I then proceeded to lose a 75% chance to get his light cone, which led to this sequence.
I think it should be this one.
Well, it is.
No, it's not.
Get like a free cool every day from the checker. If they don't see them 20 days, if they don't, yesterday was so. Oh, it's yeah. Like, I'm not even happy anymore.
I didn't think it was worth it.
I then went on a little trip to shop around Artist Alley and grabbed a Miko figurine while I was at it because I refused to leave my last convention of the year empty-handed. Not long after, the convention closed and I started packing up, honestly, pretty slowly by my standards. Hello. It is currently December 23, so it has definitely been a while. I was meant to film this a lot earlier, as in literally the Monday after the convention was when I was first planning on filming this, but I kind of went out of commission for 2 weeks. I'm just going to break down essentially my expenses for this convention, what I sold or what I thought did well, and just my overall thoughts. First, expenses. OzComic-Con tables are notoriously expensive, and for some reason, even though the Christmas show is technically not one of their main ones for the year, they still charge the same amount for it as all of the other shows. So the table was $561, including tax. This is pretty expensive as far as convention tables go here in Australia. Because this con was local, I didn't have any travel expenses, but I did take 2 Ubers to and from the convention center, which altogether cost around $140, I believe, and so in total, my cost for this convention was around $705. This isn't a huge amount of money to spend for a show in my personal opinion, but considering that it was all spent for a local show, it is still not an insignificant sum. In terms of what I sold, it's honestly pretty textbook, nothing too out of the ordinary. My best sellers were my mini standees and my ship charms, which is usually the case, because my ship charms are quite popular, and of course the mini standees, I added my new alien stage ones this time, so that was to be expected. My third best seller was my arcane charms, which I also did expect, but it was still pretty surprising. My arcane charms sold out, I believe, except for Caitlyn and Vi, which makes me a bit sad. But it is what it is. It is what it is. And then it was my printed products, which were my A3 prints and my A5 prints, which are usually pretty evenly matched now. And aside from my printed products, I then sold It was kind of just a mix of my phone charms and my miscellaneous charms, such as my Genshin Star charms and my Baldur's Gate charms, which typically do, you know, decent at every single con. So nothing too surprising in terms of what I sold. Now, onto just general thoughts and vibes. I'm just gonna yap for a bit. Sales this time were a bit lackluster, although I think I can attribute a lot of that to the expectations that I had. And for reference, I made a little under a third, I believe, of the money that I made at Con Melbourne earlier this year. Of course, I didn't expect this convention to hit those same numbers because, again, the main Melbourne show is obviously far bigger. I was hoping that it would match my average revenue, which it didn't. I did still make several times my expenses in terms of profit, but I don't think I would recommend this event or speak, you know, highly of it simply because of that fact. Overall, the consensus from artists who tabled at this event this year was that their revenue was either quite average or significantly below average, or somewhere within that range. And that's not to say that there weren't outliers or that, you know, this convention isn't worth tabling at altogether. Personally, I would still do it if I was invited next year, but a lot of that hinges on the fact that I'm not traveling for this show. I am local, so again, I don't have to pay for flights, hotels, you know, food or anything like that. If I had, say, 4-figure, you know, travel expenses to also worry about, I think that would make me seriously probably reconsider doing this show. Overall, it was still a really nice way to end the year, and I'm very glad that it was my last convention. Hopefully it was helpful or enjoyable or entertaining in some way to anyone if you're still watching, and happy holidays.